Be me, Sylvia. 28. I live in a pretty big city, have a solid group of friends, and I'd say I have my life mostly together. I've always been someone who stands up for what's right. I don't let people walk all over me, and I'm not afraid to call out problematic behavior when I see it. My best friend Shane has been around forever, since we were kids, basically. He's always been the quiet one, the observer. I'm the talker. It's a dynamic that just works. He's my go-to person whenever I need to vent, especially about the absolute disaster that is modern dating. He's a guy, so he offers a useful, if sometimes frustratingly simplistic, perspective. Most of the time, he just listens, which is honestly what I need. Someone to just listen and validate that I'm not crazy. The world is. So, the other night, I had a date. Another one. I'd been talking to this guy on an app for a week or so. He seemed fine. Decent job, could spell properly, didn't have a fish in any of his pictures. The bar is on the floor, I know, but you have to start somewhere. We decided to meet for coffee. A safe, low-stakes daytime meeting. My idea, obviously. I got there about 10 minutes early. I always do. It gives me time to get settled, observe my surroundings, and mentally prepare myself for the inevitable interrogation that passes for a first date. I picked a table with a good view of the door, but also one that wasn't too exposed. He walked in exactly on time. First impression, okay. He was taller than his pictures, which was a pleasant surprise. Dressed okay, too. Nothing spectacular, just a clean shirt and jeans. Effort had been made, a minimal amount, but still. He saw me and smiled. It was a nice smile, I guess. He walked over to the table. "Sylvia?" he asked. I nodded. He went to shake my hand, which felt a little formal, a little corporate, a bit of a weird vibe. But I went with it. "Good to finally meet you," he said, sitting down. The first test, which I don't even consciously do anymore, is the immediate conversation. Does he ask about my day, or does he immediately start talking about himself? He asked how my week was going. Passed. Barely. I gave him a brief, edited version. Didn't want to overwhelm him with my actual life and passions right away. You have to ease them into it. He told me about his week. Something about a project at work. I sort of zoned out, just nodding and making affirmative noises. I was more focused on his body language, his tone. Was he confident or arrogant? Was he looking around the room? Or was he focused on me? He seemed focused enough. The waitress came over. He looked at me and asked what I wanted. I told him. And then he ordered for both of us. Okay, red flag number 1. A small one. Maybe a pale pink flag, but still. He didn't ask if I wanted him to order for me. He just did it. It's a subtle power play. It says, I am the man. I am in charge of this interaction. It's a subconscious thing most guys do, passed down through generations of patriarchal programming. I made a mental note of it. The conversation continued. It was fine. He asked about my hobbies. I told him about my hiking, my volunteer work. I framed the volunteer work in a way that would lead into my activism, a gentle opening for him to ask more. He didn't. He just said, "Oh, that's really cool. I should do more of that." Another mental note. He's either completely oblivious to social issues, or he's actively avoiding the topic because he knows his views are problematic. He started talking about a recent trip he took with his friends, camping or something. He told a story about them getting lost for a bit and having to use an actual compass. He was laughing about it, about his friend's terrible sense of direction. I just sat there, trying to figure out the subtext. Was this a story about male bonding? Was it a subtle brag about his rugged, outdoorsy skills? It felt performative. Sounds like a lot of testosterone in one place, I said, with a little laugh to soften it. He blinked. I guess. It was just a few of us. It was fun. He didn't get it. He didn't understand the critique. He just saw it as a fun story. This is what I'm dealing with. A complete lack of critical awareness. Our coffees arrived. The waitress put them down. He immediately reached for the sugar. He put 2 packets in his. I drink mine black. He didn't ask. He just assumed. Another tiny thing, but they all add up. The whole date is a process of gathering data points. I decided to steer the conversation toward something more substantial. So, what do you think about everything that's been going on in the news lately? I asked, keeping it vague on purpose. I wanted to see where his mind would go. He gave a non-committal shrug. It's a lot, isn't it? Hard to keep up. I try not to watch the news too much. It's pretty depressing. An avoidance tactic. Classic. He either doesn't care about the world, or he's afraid of saying the wrong thing. Both are signs of a weak character. I pushed a little. Well, I think it's important to stay informed, especially now. There are a lot of rights being threatened. His eyes glazed over a little bit. I could see it, the shutter coming down. Yeah, for sure, he said, then immediately changed the subject. So, do you have any siblings? I answered his question, but I was annoyed. It was a complete dismissal of a serious topic. He was uncomfortable, so he steered the conversation back to safe, boring, small-talk territory. The rest of the date was like that. A dance of me trying to get to his actual core beliefs, and him skillfully dodging and redirecting to topics like movies, travel, and food. He wasn't a bad person. He wasn't rude or mean. He was just empty. A nicely packaged container with nothing inside. A product of a society that teaches men to be agreeable and non-confrontational on the surface, while their underlying privilege goes completely unexamined. The check came. He reached for it immediately. I've got this, he said with that same easy smile. Oh no, we can split it, I said. This is another test. If he insists, it's a control thing. Don't worry about it. My pleasure, he insisted, already pulling out his card. I let him, but my internal score sheet was filling up with red marks. He ordered for me. He paid for me. He was playing out the script, the provider, the man. It was all so predictable and exhausting. We walked out of the coffee shop. There was that awkward moment of, what now? He said, well, it was really great meeting you, Sylvia. You too, I lied. I'd love to do this again sometime, he said. I gave him a non-committal. Yeah, maybe. Text me. It's the soft rejection. It leaves the door open just enough that you don't seem like a jerk, but it gives them nothing to actually hold on to. It's a skill you learn after years of this nonsense. I walked away feeling drained, frustrated, not because he was a monster, but because he was so typical. He was the embodiment of everything I was fighting against, and he didn't even know it. He was a walking, talking example of blissful ignorance. The first thing I did was call Shane. He picked up on the second ring. How'd it go? An absolute wash. You free? I need to talk. We met at our usual spot, a quiet pub not far from my apartment. I got there, and he was already at a booth with a drink waiting for me. He knows my order. See, Shane is capable of listening and paying attention. It's not a gendered trait. It's about effort. I slid into the booth and immediately launched into my recap of the date. I told him everything. The handshake, the ordering for me, the way he dodged every serious topic, the story about his camping trip, the insistence on paying. It's like he was running a program, I explained. First date protocol 1.0. There was no real person there, just a series of pre-approved gestures and conversation topics designed to be as inoffensive as possible. Shane listened patiently, sipping his drink. He has this way of listening that makes you feel completely heard. He just nods, his eyes focused on you. It's why I can tell him anything. He just had no substance, I continued, and the subtle misogyny. It's always there. The assumption that he should lead the interaction, that he should pay. It's 2023. We're not living in the Mad Men era. I went on for a while, dissecting every moment, every word. Shane just let me go, letting me get it all out of my system. And the worst part, I said, is that he'll go home and tell his friends that the date went well. He'll think I'm interested. He has no idea that he failed every single test. I finally finished, taking a long drink. I felt a little better, having exercised the frustration. "So what do you think?" I asked him. He sort of shrugged. "Sounds like a pretty standard first date." That's the frustrating part about Shane sometimes. His pragmatism. "No, Shane, that's the problem. It is standard. This is what we're expected to put up with. This hollow performance. Where's the authenticity? Where's the passion for something, anything?" To illustrate my point, I brought up our friend Cecil. Cecil is a great guy. Sweet, kind, but a little bit of a doormat. He'd been dating a girl for about a year, and I'd been worried about him the whole time. She was fine, I guess, if you like that sort of thing. Very quiet, very agreeable. Her main ambition in life seemed to be making Cecil happy, which sounds nice on the surface, but when you dig a little deeper, it's incredibly problematic. She didn't have her own opinions. She just adopted his. She didn't have a career path she was passionate about. She was just working a job until, presumably, they got married and she could stop. I saw her for what she was, a leech. Someone who was going to latch on to Cecil and drain him of his ambition and his potential, all under the guise of being a supportive girlfriend. I'd been talking to Cecil about it for months, gently at first. I'd ask him questions. What does she want to do with her life? What is she passionate about? Do you guys ever have, like, a real debate about anything? The answers were always vague. She's passionate about us. We don't really fight. I told Shane about the latest development with them. "You know how Cecil has been feeling stuck lately," I said. "Unmotivated?" I finally got him to see that she's the source of it. A couple of weeks ago, Cecil had come to me, upset. He'd passed up a promotion at work because it would have required him to travel more. He said his girlfriend got really sad at the thought of him being away. She didn't tell him not to take it, but her whole demeanor was about how much she would miss him. It was emotional manipulation, pure and simple. I laid it out for him. "Cecil, she's holding you back. She's clipping your wings because she's afraid of you flying away. A real partner would push you to be your best self, even if it was hard for them." I told him how her desire for a simple domestic life was incompatible with his own long-term goals. He's a smart guy. He could go so far, but not with her as an anchor around his neck. I told all of this to Shane in the pub. "So, last week he finally did it," I said, a little proud of my friend for finding his strength. He broke up with her. Shane's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. "He's a wreck, obviously," I admitted. "He's heartbroken, but it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. It hurts now, but he'll be so much better off in the long run. He just needs to see it. I saved him from a future of quiet desperation." I leaned back in the booth, feeling like I had thoroughly and completely made my case. The dating pool is filled with hollow men like my date, and the women who are actually desirable to them are these retro wives-in-training who smother them into mediocrity. "It's a minefield," I concluded. "I'm navigating a minefield, and I'm the only one who seems to be wearing glasses." Shane was quiet for a long time after that. He just stared into his drink, swirling the ice around. I thought he was processing everything, connecting the dots between my awful date and Cecil's situation. Usually at this point, he'd say something like, "Yeah, that sucks," or "I see what you mean." Some small token of agreement. But he said nothing. The silence started to stretch out, and it became uncomfortable. I started to feel a little insecure. Did I say too much? Was I too harsh about Cecil's ex? No, I was just being honest. I was being a good friend. "What?" I finally asked, a little defensively. What are you thinking?" He looked up from his glass, and his eyes were different. Not angry, not sad, just tired, like a deep soul-level weariness. I'd never seen him look like that before. He took a deep breath. It felt like the air in the pub had suddenly gone still. Everything that had been a fun, righteous vent session a few minutes before suddenly felt heavy and serious. I had spent the last hour laying out my evidence for how broken the world was, how messed up men were, and how my own loneliness was a symptom of this larger cultural sickness. I was expecting him to agree with me, to be my ally. I needed him to tell me I was right. So I looked at him, my one solid rock in a sea of nonsense, my one friend who I thought truly, deeply understood me. I felt this weird surge of vulnerability, this mix of anger and sadness about my life, my dating prospects, everything. My voice was a little smaller than I wanted it to be. "Honestly, Shane, why is it so hard? Why are all men either scared of me or just complete trash? What am I actually doing wrong?" The question hung in the air between us. For the first time, it wasn't just a rhetorical flourish to cap off a rant. I think I actually wanted an answer, a real one. Shane looked at me, and I could see him debating with himself. I saw the flicker of his usual conflict-averse nature warring with something else, something I hadn't seen before. He put his glass down on the table with a soft, deliberate click. "You want to know what you're doing wrong, Sylvia?" he asked. His voice was quiet, almost flat. All the usual warmth was gone. "You really want to know?" I just nodded. I suddenly felt like I was on very thin ice. "Okay," he said, and he leaned forward slightly. "Let's start with your date tonight." He picked up my narrative right where I'd left off, but he reframed it. "The guy who showed up on time was dressed nicely and was polite to you? The one who asked about your week before talking about himself? You call that a red flag?" I opened my mouth to protest, to say that wasn't what I meant, but he kept going. "He ordered coffee for you. Maybe it was a power play. Or maybe, just maybe, he was trying to be nice. Maybe he thought it was a simple, courteous gesture. But you didn't see it as a gesture. You saw it as a piece of evidence for a case you were already building against him before he even walked in the door." I felt a prickle of indignation. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" he shot back, still calm. "He told you a story about a camping trip with his friends, a normal human story, and you immediately diagnosed it as performative masculinity and testosterone. You didn't just listen to the story, you psychoanalyzed it. You turned a simple anecdote into a political statement." He was using my own words against me, and it was unnerving. "He avoided talking about the news," Shane continued, his voice methodical. "You saw that as a sign of weak character. Did it ever occur to you that maybe he just didn't want to get into a heavy, divisive political debate with a stranger on a first date? That maybe he wanted to keep things light and just get to know you as a person?" The way he laid it all out, so logically, so stripped of my emotional interpretation, it made me feel foolish. The whole time, he said, you weren't on a date. You were conducting an audit. You had a checklist in your head, and you were just looking for reasons to disqualify him. He paid for the coffee, and you saw it as a patriarchal move to establish dominance. What if he just thought he was doing the polite thing? What if that's how he was raised? Not everything is a symptom of toxic masculinity, Sylvia. Sometimes a guy paying for a $5 coffee is just a guy paying for a $5 coffee. My face was getting hot. I felt attacked. He was twisting everything. "So, what was I supposed to do?" I asked, my voice rising. "Ignore all the signs? Pretend I didn't see the underlying sexism in all his actions?" "What sexism?" he asked genuinely. "Did he say something disrespectful? Did he treat you poorly? Or did he just fail to live up to your impossibly rigid ideological standards? You didn't give him a chance to be a person. You just saw him as a representative of an entire gender you've already decided you're at war with. The word war hit me hard. I'm not at war with anyone, I mumbled, but it sounded weak even to my own ears. Aren't you? Shane said, his eyes not leaving mine. Then, let's talk about Cecil. A cold dread washed over me. I thought I was on solid ground with Cecil. I thought I had done the right thing. You didn't save Cecil, Shane said, his voice dropping a little lower. You destroyed his relationship. I know his ex. She's a sweet girl. She loved him. She wasn't holding him back. She was his biggest supporter. The reason she didn't have some grand career plan was because she wanted to support his madre. She wanted to build a life with him, to be his partner in every sense of the word. That's not being a leech, Sylvia. That's called being a team. I was shaking my head. No, you don't understand. She was making him weak. That promotion. The promotion. He cut me off, a flash of actual anger in his eyes for the first time. He didn't turn down the promotion because she manipulated him. He turned it down because he didn't want to be away from the woman he loved. It was his choice. But you couldn't accept that. You had to frame it as him being a victim, because her choices didn't align with your worldview. You think a woman who wants a family and a domestic life is some kind of traitor to the cause. You can't stand to see people happy in a way that you've deemed unacceptable. Every word felt like a physical blow. He's miserable now, not because he's going through a tough breakup, Shane said, leaning back. He's miserable because you systematically poisoned his mind against a woman who was good to him. You planted seeds of doubt and insecurity until he didn't know what to think anymore. You acted like a friend, but what you really did was isolate him and make him dependent on your approval. You're a wrecker, Sylvia. You see a happy couple, a stable relationship, and you see it as a problem that needs to be solved. I was speechless, utterly and completely speechless. My throat felt tight. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was wrong, that he was brainwashed by the patriarchy just like all the others. Wow, I finally managed to choke out. I can't believe you're saying this to me. After all these years, you're supposed to be my friend. It was my last line of defense, the appeal to our history. He looked at me, and the anger was gone. It was replaced by that same profound weariness from before. It was almost worse. No, Sylvia? He said, and his voice was gentle again, which made it hurt more. I am your friend, and that's why I'm the only one who's going to tell you this. This isn't about politics. It's not about feminism or the patriarchy. It's about you. He let that hang in the air for a moment. The reason you can't find a partner, the reason you go on all these awful dates, it has nothing to do with the men. He took a breath. It's because you're not the kind of woman men marry. The words just landed in the middle of the table. They didn't feel mean. They felt like a statement of fact, a diagnosis. My mind was racing, trying to formulate a defense, an argument, anything. Misogynist, sexist, how dare he? But my mouth wouldn't work. He must have seen the confusion and the hurt on my face, because he continued, spelling it out for me as if I were a child. Think about it. Marriage, a real partnership. It's hard. Life is hard. It throws things at you. A man, when he's looking for a wife, for a life partner, he's looking for an ally, a safe harbor. He's looking for someone who will be in his corner when the world is beating him down. He gestured vaguely toward the door of the pub, as if indicating the whole world outside. He wants to come home to a place of peace, not a second battlefield. He wants support, not constant criticism. He wants encouragement, not a never-ending series of tests that he's guaranteed to fail. He leaned in one last time, his voice barely a whisper. Men don't marry a protest sign, Sylvia. They don't marry their political opponent. They marry a partner, a teammate, Someone who adds peace and value to their life, not someone who sees their very existence as a problem to be fixed. He paused. You offer none of that. You offer a fight, and men are just tired. They're tired of fighting. He leaned back in his seat. He had said his piece. I sat there, completely frozen. The whole world, my entire carefully constructed worldview, felt like it was tilting on its axis. Every complaint I'd ever had, every failed date, every guy who had ghosted me. I saw it all through a new lens. Was it possible? Was it possible that they weren't the problem? I tried to find the anger again. It was my fuel, my armor. But it wasn't there. All I felt was a hollow, empty space where my righteous indignation used to be. I looked at Shane, my best friend. He wasn't looking at me like an enemy. He just looked sad. Sad for me. The waitress came by and put the check on the table. Neither of us moved. After a moment, Shane reached into his wallet, pulled out some cash, and put it on the bill. Enough for his drink and a tip. He stood up. I have to go, he said quietly. He didn't say, I'll call you later, or text me. He just looked at me one last time with that look of profound disappointment and sorrow, and then he turned and walked out of the pub. I just sat there, alone in the booth. I replayed his words over and over in my head. You're not the kind of woman men marry. You offer a fight. Men are tired of fighting. I thought about my date. I thought about Cecil and his ex-girlfriend. I thought about the long list of men who had passed through my life, all of whom I had written off as inadequate, problematic, or simply not good enough. The check was still on the table. I stared at it. For the first time in my entire adult life, I had absolutely nothing to say. MFW. I might have been the toxic one all along,